Welcome back. Now, as the eyes of the world stares with the Iran and Israel conflict, Tel Aviv maintains its genocide in Gaza and it shows no sign of easing. In this week, 70 Palestinians were killed in a single day at a food distribution site run by the controversial US and Israeli backed group in Khan Yunis known as the Gaza Humanitarian Foundations. This happens as all other aid channels are blocked, including medical supplies. Joining me now, I'd like to welcome Amjad Shawa, who's the director of the Palestinian non-governmental organizations network in Gaza. He joins me from Gaza City. Amjad, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and shukran so much for joining us.
Alaikum assalam. Thank you. Shukran.
Absolute pleasure. Amjad, I want to touch on what we have been seeing now in this last few weeks, where this 8 points by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is being established. And when many people get there, some don't return because there are individuals within this GHF that are shooting at many of the residents in Gaza. Talk to us about that.
First, just to clarify, this is not a distribution points. This kind of military points for what's so-called an American military company, which is used kind of militants to guard this area. There is no civil servants in that area. Only we have these guards and this kind of fenced basement, and there is kind of rows for the Palestinians, surrounded also by sands and mountains and also fences. So just also to clarify, this happened after about more than 105 days of the Israeli total closure of the crossings, denial of the entry of all the humanitarian supplies to Gaza. So people are starving, and Israel make these military points as the main ones. If you want to get aid, it's only to go to these sites, which based on the southern part of Gaza Strip. And when you ask why south, in order to force the people to displace from Gaza and north to the south, in order to make it easy for the Israeli occupation forces to occupy Gaza totally. And Netanyahu himself, he declared the establishment of these three sites, it's the main step in order to displace the Palestinians, then to deport them totally from Gaza Strip. So this is kind of, this SRS and what had been called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation are serving the Israeli agenda to displace the Palestinians, to deport them, and to sustain the humanitarian catastrophe and deepening it. And who is going there? Just to clarify, why does the UNRWA have the UNRWA, it's one of the UN agencies, they have 400 distribution points. We as national NGOs, we have hundreds of distribution points. We do respect the humanitarian principles and we committed on them. The second, the safety and dignity to keep them for the people who are receiving aid. And we are getting the aid to them, to the neighborhoods. Not we are getting people to be suffocated and killed in these sites. These sites are in areas which is totally controlled by the Israeli occupation. There is the quadcopter over the heads and the Israeli tanks which is surrounding these sites. So every morning, early morning, that we have thousands of people who are going to these sites to collect some food, to be back to their families, who are also starving and their babies and children are malnutrition. And instead of being back with some food, they are back as bodies for their children injured. People have to walk for 2 hours to reach this area and to compete, to stand on rows. And we are talking about a few thousands of parcels are waiting. So people are competing. When they open the gates, there is kind of chaos. There is no one to receive them. There is no database. There is no arrangements. Just rush to get your food, and then the Israelis start to shoot towards the people. And there is no, as I said, there is no medical points to treat these injuries. We have to carry the bodies and the injured people and to walk for hours to reach the first medical point that we can. And also, if I can talk about the issue of medical points, that which is there is severe deficit of
Yeah.
medical items, medical medicines, supplies, and other needs to save the lives. So that's why we are losing lives of these injured people. It's
Amjad,
it's kind of a traps for the Palestinians. It's not distribution point at all. Ever, never we can call them. This is distribution point that's supposed to be committed with the humanitarian standards, as the UN is saying and as we are witnessing.
Amjad, and that's why I want to get to the next question, these medical points, because the hospital infrastructure in Gaza, the entire Gaza Strip, is completely gone. Al Nasser Hospital is functioning barely. Al Quds Hospital is functioning barely. Al Aqsa Martyrs Hospital is functioning barely. It's probably close to it not functioning. And then we have these medical points where there's practically nothing. And when you have famine happening, when you have starvation happening, to get to those medical points becomes not only a challenge, but when you are there, there's actually nothing for a lot of the medical staff to work with.
Yes, yes, we're talking about 105 days of the Israeli total closure of the borders, nothing entered, and the Israeli systematic destruction of the health facilities and the forcible displacement of others. So the rest of the hospitals, which still function partially because already it was targeted by the Israelis, as in Nasser, Al Amal, Al Aqsa, Al Auda, and the Arab Ahli Hospital, which was attacked so many times by the Israelis and destroyed. So we have small clinics that we are dealing with no specialized hospitals. So first for the injury, every day we have hundreds of injured people. So the hospitals which is working partially is overwhelmed by the numbers of the casualties, and the second by patients, chronic patients. We witness severe deterioration in the cases, and on time we have these contagious diseases because of the pollution, because of the issue of water. Whilst we have no medical supplies as medicine or disposables, which is also something that we have to warn. But the worst thing that I have to warn from now, the issue of fuel. From day one of this war, Israeli cut electricity in Gaza, so we are depending on the electricity generators, but which is working by fuel. So in a few days, that the fuel will run out, so the clinics will stop, which means that these cases who are in the ICUs will witness not only deterioration, it could be threat on their lives. While we have lost also the surgery rooms and the others, so that every day we are losing lives of these patients and injured people because we have no capacity in the hospitals till now, no evacuation, or just very limited number who managed to be evacuated outside Gaza Strip, whilst we are in need for 14,000 cases in need for medical evacuation outside Gaza.
Amjad, I want to talk just before we go to the break about the internet cutout that had happened in Gaza this week, because a number of journalists were not able to go ahead and share their stories. I'm on a WhatsApp group where we get a lot of information from Palestinian news that occurs. Again, that's another ploy, isn't it, from Israel to go ahead and severely cut communication. I think even Al Jazeera had problems communicating with some of its correspondents on the ground. Again, another ploy, isn't it, to just silence many of the voices that are coming from Gaza.
Yes, and to isolate Gaza completely. And that's what's happening because of the internet. And now the issue of what's going with Iran for sure. That every day we are losing about 100 to 130 lives. So to disconnect Gaza from the external world and to continue what they are doing by this grave violation, this genocide crimes committed against the Palestinians, whether by the airstrikes, on the Palestinian civilians, and in the same time by suffocating the Palestinians through this aid cut and this deterioration with full meaning on all aspects. So the very limited voices from Gaza to go out, and the stories about and the facts about the situation here happening, it's not moving out. Till now, the south area of Gaza Strip, it's disconnected from the internet. And just to mention that due to the issue of the internet, for example, this early morning in the south area of Gaza Strip, there was tens of people who were killed also in this called GHF, this military distribution point. So every day we are witnessing such attacks. And yesterday we have more than 100 people killed. And this morning till now, there is 50, 60 people killed also by the Israeli gunfire. So Israel using the internet disconnection in order to silence the media regarding what's going on in Gaza, not to document also the cases and to have a free hand about what's going on. And this is the case here from day one of the war, that they are doing this on the while we are miss accountability and miss this kind of international pressure, real pressure on Israel.
After the break, I'll continue my conversation with Amjad Shawa, who is coming to us from Gaza City in Palestine. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. I'm still in conversation with Amjad Shawa, who's the director of the Palestinian non-governmental organizations network in Gaza. Shukran again for staying with us, Amjad. Amjad, I want to talk about this so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. It's now happened for the last 2 weeks. Both Israel and America claim that this is necessary and that they are the only legitimate aid source to help the people of Gaza. I mean, this is probably as farcical as you can get, but it's disturbing given that when this happens, and you've mentioned it, that this is happening at military points. And if you're not coming back with food or even a bag of flour, you're coming back in body bags. This has now become the new reality for Palestinians in Gaza, hasn't it?
The reality, this is kind of insulting and killing points for the Palestinians. And just to mention that it's coming also to replace a humanitarian structure which is working in Gaza for ages as UNRWA. And UNRWA is going in Gaza working in Gaza for 75 years. And they have the humanitarian system, and they have the database, and they have these procedures, and all the things in order. Also, they have the principles. This mechanism, which is called GHF, is coming to replace these humanitarian principles with their security political agenda to be imposed in the Palestinians. So, and we are talking about unprecedented mechanism to replace an humanitarian structure, the NGOs, the UN, and all these actors on the ground who were supposed to be supported, not to be replaced and dismantled. This is something that we have to understand, the seclusion of the different actors on the ground, which mean that it's grave violation to the humanitarian principle, the international law. And I have to stress here that GHF, SRS, are partners of the Israelis of the insulting and the killing. And they're supposed to be accountable towards their crimes against the Palestinians. And the international community supposed to support such claim on the issue of accountability against this grave violation that committed by the Israelis, whether Israelis and this American foundation.
Amjad, there are hundreds, maybe if not thousands of trucks that are waiting on the Rafah border to get in. And I'm sure you're well aware that there was this global march to Gaza, which was supposed to happen last weekend, which didn't occur due to Egyptian authorities, of course, detaining. And our previous guest before you came on, Omaya Teba, had spoken to with regards to that. The fact that you've got this GHF operating and they're operating with food in one hand and a weapon on the other not only makes the situation dire, but it also needs to have more international pressure on the United Nations to go ahead and force Israel to open up that border. At this moment, that's not happening, even though the UN Secretary General is calling for aid to be flown in. For an individual in Gaza, this is as dire as it can get. Sometimes we get lost for words with the fact that we have no aid that is going in. But the fact that we've got this GHF operating, it really makes life even more difficult for Palestinians, because you're not only dealing with famine and a lack of medical supplies, but at any given time, Israel can launch attacks to maintain this genocide that is happening.
Yes, there is 130,000 tons of aid is blocking by Israel in the borders, and the deny entry of these aid loads to get in Gaza for months. And the big problem that the Israelis want to mislead also the international community, that they are entering the aid and they are already distributing it. So this is some American media want to show, and the American and the Israeli politicians to use as, that they are they are very merciful and they are distributing aid to Palestinians. We have to stress this is not a humanitarian agency. This is kind of killing traps for the Palestinians. And the second, it's a grave violation. And the third, which is the Gaza is not only suffering from famine. Gaza is suffering from all the aspects of the humanitarian catastrophe. The daily airstrikes by the Israelis and killing civilians, the missing protection, and the second, the issue of attacking the health institutions, as the hospitals, the clinics, the schools, and the tents of the Palestinians, the sites for the displaced people, the displacement itself. Now Israel is occupying about 82% of the Gaza Strip totally. And now we have 90% of the population are forcibly displaced. The first 100% of the Palestinians in Gaza are in very severe water insecurity for both drinking and daily use. We have very limited amount of water for each the families. The share of one individual in Gaza, it's from 3 to 5 liters a day, which is with the meaning that it's another catastrophe we are passing through regarding the issue of water, which is reflect on the people that they have to deal with or to use unsafe resources for water, and that create a lot of diseases and so many cases that we are receiving in our medical points regarding this issue, and time that we are run out of medications. So they have severe pains, and we have this contagious also diseases started to be there. So it's the situation now, the humanitarian situation is very critical. It's the worst ever that we witnessed. I cannot also disconnect the 20 months of the 78 years of the Israeli occupation of our land, and mainly this 18 years of the total blockade in Gaza and the Israeli systematic destruction of the socio-economic infrastructure to make the Palestinians completely dependent on aid.
Amjad, water, you've brought up an important point with regards to water, because prior to the genocide starting on October the 7th, 2023, we had Israel controlling the water of Gaza. It's probably gone even worse now, given that not only are they controlling the water, but they're not even allowing water tanks to go ahead and enter the various parts of the strip.
That's right. Before the war, that Gaza was suffering from severe water shortage, and at the same time, the water aquifer was polluted, and we have about 30% of the Gaza water was unequitable for Gaza, suitable for Gaza, for the human being to be used. So there was severe shortage and before, but Israel, when they invaded Gaza by the tanks, they destroyed, and bulldozers, they destroyed the water facilities and the water infrastructure, the water wells and the other water facilities here in Gaza. So now we are dependent on some water wells, some lines here and there. Also that the water lines, it was almost destroyed in Gaza. So we are suffering from this destruction, also from the loss of big quantities of water. Now we have problem regarding that the chlorine for the drinking water, it's also zero, and we are suffering now from uncertainty regarding the quality of water that we are drinking.
Amjad, one final question. I know we always speak about international condemnation, we speak about international pressure, but it seems to not have any ear from Israel. They seem to continue this genocide, they seem to continue the blockade of aid. And it makes life difficult, as it was already before, for the residents of Gaza. And I know it's difficult for you to speak on the way forward, but I have to ask you this, Amjad. Surely this has to stop, but to what extent, though?
Brother, we are not in need only for statements and for condemnations, which is very important. What we need for actions, urgent actions. We need to apply justice for the victims. We need accountability on these grave violations, these crimes against the humanity. Also, to stop providing Israel with weapons that used against these civilians in Palestine. We need not just concerns from the international community about the situation here, about only famine, because sometimes it touches the morality. We need them to stop the war on Gaza and to deal with the roots of the problem, which is political, the ignorance of the Palestinian legitimate rights on self-determination, to have their own state, to apply all the human rights principles, not selective on this.
Amjad, absolute pleasure having you, and shukran so much for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That's Amjad Shawa. He's the director of the Palestinian Non-Governmental Organizations Network based in Gaza City. That's all we have for you here on News in Focus. From myself, Hospital, and the rest of the team in Johannesburg. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.